Winter F1 fishing can be very frustrating at times, and believe you me, it can be very frustrating for me. But I thought, what a great opportunity to bring the Preston cameras to the famous Tunnel Barn Farm today. It's freezing cold. The conditions are going to be very, very tricky to catch these F1s today because it's very, very windy, and we have had absolutely stacks of rain. And for me personally, I don't do F1 fishing week in, week out. I mean, some people might think I do, but I don't. So for me to come to a venue like Tunnel Barn during the winter, and I fish here for the team with the teams of 4, and I absolutely love the fishing. But some days you go home, you're really frustrated. Other days, everything's nice and smooth. But that's F1 fishing. But I thought I'm going to bring you here today. It's something we've not really touched on for quite some time, is winter F1 fishing. And I'm going to run you through all the things that I do and the things that I think make a big difference in my F1 winter fishing. So the first thing I'm going to do is run you through all the baits that I've brought for today's session. I'm just about ready to go now. I've got all my rigs set up, and what I'll do, I'll talk you through the rigs as we're getting fishing and when we're catching a few fish. But just want to talk to you a little bit about F1 fishing, really. I mean, it's not the sort of thing I do week in, week out, believe it or not. Probably a lot of you think that I fish for F1s every week, and I don't. And I think coming to like Tunnel Barn like we are today, I think it's really nice for me to sort of put you in my frame of mind when I come to Tunnel Barn fishing, especially in the winter. I fished the Winter League here, teams of 4, and we've actually won it 3 years on the trot, I think, now. So that's a massive achievement for me and the team, because we don't do it every day. And I think it's nice for me to come here, actually show you what goes through my mind. But talking about Tunnel Barn, I'm on New Lake today, and I know Mike, the owner, has actually put a few stockies in. And when we come in on league matches, you know there's some fresh fish put in. Pellets have to come into your game plan. You might not catch on them, but today I'm going to be using pellets and maggots. So if I looked at the colour of the water today, we've had an absolute bucket load of rain recently, as we all know. There's not that much colour in the lakes. The actual colour is sort of going out of the lake. And that's what I sort of think about. You know, I could start on bread, but I don't really fancy it. The wind's a bit of a nightmare, to be honest. So I'm going to concentrate today on pellets and maggots, which most of us fish week in, week out for these style of fish. So let's talk you through the baits first off. Now, most importantly, every time I come to Tunnel Barn, you know, all of us, when we go F1 fishing, during the winter, for every sort of styles of fishing really, I've got some maggots. Now, in there, I've got probably 80% red maggots and some whites and a few fluoros. It's what I always do. White maggot on its day on these sort of venues can be deadly. So I would say never go anywhere F1 fishing without white maggots. I know it's normally red, but I have had really big weights of F1s fishing with single and double white maggot, or what I call a Bristol City or Man United, a red and a white. So I've got a couple of pints of maggots. That's going to be ample for today. I've also got a few fluoro pinkies. Took them out of the shop today or this morning. You know, maggot and pinky on the hook, double pinky. If it's really, really tough, sometimes I've even fed pinkies. I try not to, but they're there just in case. Now, me pellet wise, nice and simple. I've got some 2mm fishery pellets there. These are absolutely soaked the maximum. So I've got to me peg this morning. First thing I've done was mixed a bit of ground bit up and soaked the pellets. They're soft all the way through. And that's what I do every time I go F1 fishing in the winter. I soak my 2mm to the maximum. So nice and easy there. And I've got my favourite bait boosted full meal pro expanders. And they smell like the washed out bait booster that I've put on them. They're absolutely mustard. It don't get easier. I've just soaked these last night before I've come this morning, and they're all ready to go. Job done. So just 4mm pro expanders for the hook and feeding 2mm fishery pellets. And the only other thing I've got, which again, you never know. I've had, you know, fishing a winter league, when you're trying to get as many section points as you can, you have to have a bit of ground bait mixed up. Pro Thatcher's green, I've riddled it off this morning, mixed it, riddled it twice more, so it's really nice and fluffy and fine. Honestly, when I've been in some tough areas on these lakes over the years, and this has got me out of trouble no end. So you have to mix it up. Today, because we've had like about a week of sort of between 6 and 10 degrees, I might even catch down the edge. You never know. And I will probably introduce a bit of ground bait, but we'll see how we get on. So that's it. So like I said, I'll talk you through the rigs and the hooks, the elastics as we get going, but just a little insight of what baits I'm using, and also I'll talk you through the tactics, what I'm doing as we get fishing. I'm ready to go now. Now, obviously, I want to start on pellets because I just want to sort of feel my way into the match. It's what I normally do. Sometimes you catch on it, sometimes you don't. But like I said, if one of your lakes you're going to has had stockies put in, it's definitely got to be in your armoury. Now, the rig I've set up today, I've set up 2 different rigs, so don't get too confused. But on their day, they can be really, really important. So I've set up 2 rigs, 2 slightly different floats as well for fishing shorts. I'm going to start on a top kit plus 3. One, because I've looked at the water, it's quite clear, so I want to get out a little bit. It's going to give me the best chance to catch. So elastic wise, I've got 9 Jura. I've been using that now all winter. It's been absolutely superb. I've caught weights of silverfish and F1s. And the thing is with these lakes as well nowadays, some of the F1s are really big. And I used to use like an 8 original, and I've gone to the 9 Jura, so it gets the bigger ones under control. I've got a little cad pot on there, one of the small ones. That's the sort of normal pot I use day in, day out for this sort of fishing. 011, excuse me, 011 reflow power line main line. I've actually got a 4x14 F1 fine. Now, when I'm pellet fishing, or what I've learned, and it's only driving home from places like Tunnel Barn, I've just felt like I needed a really sensitive float for pellet fishing. I can't really sort of put it into words why, but all I know is it makes a difference, especially when you're fishing for these little stockies. I mean, they're so sort of crafty. Sometimes they just sit there with the pellet in their mouth, and I just find with a slightly thinner bristle, it shows the bite up a lot better, and that's why I've set an F1 fine up for pellet fishing. You can use it with maggots as well, but I prefer my F1 maggots for that. So that's why I've set an F1 fine up. Now, on this rig, it's really positive because it's my pellet line. I've got a bulk of number 9s, and I've got a number 9 dropper. And then I've got a 4-inch hook length of 010 Andy Power down to a 16 SFL. So it's really, really tight shotting. And that's for a reason. If I'm on a pile of little stockies, I want to get down there, get the bite and get one on and come back. And hopefully I'll catch the odd big one in between. So that's what I'm going to start on, and we'll talk about the other rigs as I get going. They're very similar, to be honest, anyway. So I'm going to get one of my little Pro Expander 4mm. Stick that on. And I've made a little ball up of the Fishery 2mm. Because of the wind, you know, it's probably like 5 foot deep where I'm fishing. I want to get a little ball straight away, get it down, and see what happens. And you just don't know. It's so like, when we start the winter leagues here, it's so like, come on, I hope I get a bite really quick. You just don't know. So I'm just going to go out there. I've plumbed up, so the body of the float, as per normal, just out of the water. And I'm hoping, now I'm not going to feed any other line at the moment. It's basically starting off, getting down there, and see if I can make a bite or two. You never know. It's going to take some time. It is winter. The water's really cold. I think the water's like 8 degrees. The air temperature is about 10 this morning. It is very tricky some days because there's lots of areas of your lake that you can fish. And what I've done at the start, I've plumbed up where I am there, and I've tried to find the same depth round to my right out of the way. But I'm not going to feed that. It just depends on what happens here. They're very tricky some days, F1s. They can be like somewhere in your peg. I had a classic match here that, on the weekend just before, or last weekend, that I caught very, very little. and I've gone 16 metres up my peg. I was on a really narrow peg, well, narrow to my right, and the fish were sat up into the narrows. It's really weird. And I've ended up catching like 69 pound. I've gone from literally nowhere to third on the lake. I only got beat by £1.5 pounds, I think, from actually framing in the match. And I think I've only like £9 off for coming second in the match. But that's what this sort of fishing's about. It's very frustrating some days, but when it happens, it can be amazing. You've got to be quite sort of strict with yourself some days about, you know, starting off like this and see what happens. It's always a gamble. You might, you know, the times I've driven home from Tunnel Barn and I'm like, oh, why did I even bother fishing with pellets? But other days you've gone in, you've had a great run on pellets, or you might catch on pellets all match. But you have to start on something. So what I've actually set up today, I've actually set up a top kit plus 3, but I can also fish the top kit plus 2. It's exactly the same depth. So if I start fishing with maggots, which I probably will if pellets don't work, I will definitely start fishing with maggots short. I might even catch like on a top kit plus 2, top kit plus 3, maybe halfway through. But if the fishing gets better, I can come back to a top kit plus 2. I know that sounds a bit crazy, but honestly, it can make a big difference. And them F1 fines, you can tell the difference. They're so sensitive. Even if you were fishing with like 2mm expanders for skimmers, it make a big, big difference. I know it's only a fraction of the difference between the F1 maggot and the F1 fine for how thick the bristle is, but honestly, sensitivity is a lot. And having that simple bulk, one dropper, like I said, you can fish with maggots on that anyway, but I do prefer a slightly thicker bristle from when I'm fishing with maggots. Just had my first little indication then, didn't actually catch a fish. I've sat there for approximately 5 minutes. The wind's just got a bit stronger, but it's actually that float, that F1 fine sitting there, absolutely beautiful. It looks like it's going to go under, to be honest, which is always good. But what's going through my mind, I've sat there for like 5 minutes, I had a little indication, which is sound. I mean, bearing in mind we are winter fishing, it is not summer fishing. You know, sometimes F1 fishing, you know, maybe on this lake today, if we were in a match, there'd be some people getting a butter chuck from little stockies and stuff, because there's obviously a little ball of them there. There's not a lot you can do about that. You just got to sort of fish your own match. You've only got your peg to fish. But what I'm thinking is that obviously there's not a ball of them there, because I think if you went in, you'd be pretty quick. Even though we may just started, you normally get quite a sort of quick response. And then I'm thinking about my other lines. So at the moment, I've got a line to my right. It's exactly the same depth as where I'm fishing. It's quite a way to my right. If I actually plumb up to my right slightly, it comes up about a float length, which, to be honest, I don't want to come back and mess about in my float if I can help it. So what I'm thinking at the moment is give this a little bit more time, see what happens. Like I said, we've only just started, and then I got to make a decision then. You know, do I pot a few maggots to my right? Do I turn this straight into a maggot line if I think it's going to be really tough, and I might have to fish sort of, you know, maggots might be the bait of the day. And what do I do with my long line? I mean, at the moment, I fancy just like bringing it back in a minute and then just tapping a few micros out on my 30-metre line. At least I've got some in the water. At least I've got a bit of smell. I can always go over there with a pellet. Or I could obviously just go over there with maggots. So that's what I'm thinking at the moment. I just want to sort of put a little bit of bait in. I'm going to do that now, actually. I just want to put a little bait in at 13 metres. Because I don't want to sort of... If this ain't going to happen, I also don't want to sit there. So I'm literally just going to get my little pot. I'm going to put a little lid on. And just tap a few loose micros out. Just going to fill that little cab pot up. There's very little bait. I just felt in my mind, but I didn't want to do that at the start, because I thought if that short line is absolutely brilliant, I can just carry on, concentrate. But also now, after fishing for like 5-10 minutes, so I'm going to put a few pellets out there. At least I've sort of felt like if this doesn't go under in the next 5 minutes, I can go out there and I've fed a bit of bait. The pellet's still on there. One more joint on. So let's go back in there. I'm not going to feed it again, because I fed that little ball. The hardest part about this fishing for me is starting on a bait like pellets, right? And if it doesn't work, you change the maggots, because that's what you do. But it's then, if you don't catch, you've got to try and find the fish in your peg. That is the most sort of, I would say, the most difficult part about this style of fishing, especially at Tunnel Barn. Sometimes you have to go to the fish don't come to you, especially at the start of the session. It's really tricky some days. But we'll just carry on with this for another 5 minutes and see what happens. Then I'll make a decision then, you know, maybe go out at 13 with a pellet on just to see. And then I've got to make a decision then, you know, do I change the maggots? That's something I'll talk about as we go along. Well, we had to stop filming for a little while because we had a bit of a shower, but just a bit of a rundown. I've started on that top kit +3 with pellets like you've seen. Never had I had one indication. Well, I thought it was an indication because the wind's quite bad. So what I've done, I didn't feed that again. I actually went to 13 metre on my 13 metre line, which is probably about 10 inches shallower than where I'm fishing on a top kit +3. Went over there on pellets because I obviously put a few pellets in there before I went in on it. 10 minutes left it, went in on it on pellet, never had a bite. So what I done then was put like 10 maggots in, went in on a single maggot. I actually caught a nice F1, so that was nice. Then I caught a little stocky, probably about 12 ounces, 14 ounces. Then I caught 2 or 3 perch. So what I've done, I've actually then plumbed up. Well, I plumbed up at the start of the session, slightly to my right in the same depth of water at 13. So what I've done, I've tapped a few maggots and micros on that line. I've just left it and I've just come short. Just to look. And what I've done, because I caught a couple of F1s on that 13 metre line with maggots, I straight away tapped like 20 maggots in on this top kit +3. And I've actually come in on that. I've been trying to throw a few maggots while I've been fishing at 13. And I've actually caught a nice big skimmer and a couple of perch. But I've not actually caught an F1 there. But I'll just come and have a look, because that's what I'm trying to do, is trying to find out, you know, where the fish are, maybe what depth of water they want to be in. But at the moment, you know, we've only been going for a little while, and it is exactly what it would be like in a winter league if you're not on many fish, which is nice for the camera. It's really tricky. And also, on a top kit +3, the wind's blowing left to right, but the tow is just trying to sort of back up a little bit, which is lovely. At 13 metres, it's just trying to go with the wind, and I know that's going to make it really tricky. And straight away, as soon as I went long, I actually seen the sort of tow trying to go with the wind. I come back and I've put probably about another inch or 2 of line on the deck, because I'm trying to hold it dead still against the tow. Where this shore is lovely. It's like just backing up, and your presentation is perfect. But every time I've come on this short line, or every time I've shipped out with a fish, or shipped back with a fish, I've put like 10 maggots in, and I've stopped throwing for the time being, because we are still early in the session. But I'm going to go back out on that 13 metre line, the new 13 metre line, which is slightly to my right. It's probably about 3 metres away. I know it sounds quite confusing, but that's how you've got to think sometimes. on this sort of venue, I've been here and had one of the easiest days fishing that I'll ever have. But I've also been on this venue and certain other venues which can be really, really sort of complicated fishing. And this could be one of the days where you've got to go around trying to find the fish, or is it one of those days where you can't line them up? And that's what this style of fishing is all about. You know, a lot of the time you just got to see what's in your peg, try and work out the baits that they're going to want. Pellets, for me, knowing the venue a little bit as well at the moment, because I come here sort of every couple of weeks fishing, pellets hasn't been the greatest. And I don't give it long. I'm probably a little, you know, some days I probably felt like I should have given it a little bit longer. But I just can't wait to get on me, get fishing with maggots. I just feel with maggots I can make something happen rather than just sitting there on pellets. It's like now I've gone in there, I've had a decent perch, I had a skimmer about a pound, missed an indication, and it feels like I need to move now. So I'm going to go, just ship this back in a second, go out on my new 30-metre line, like I said, which is probably about 3 metres to the right of where I did catch a couple of F1s, but I caught a couple, then I got a few silverfish. There's a tiny little indication then. So on this is my maggot line, I've actually got a 4x14 F1 maggot on there. There's a tiny indication then. Instead of a fine, just a simple bulk, 2 droppers, 2 number 10 droppers, a 6-inch hook length and an 18 SFL. Now an 18 SFL is a really small hook, so it's great for putting single and double maggot on. Oh, that was a good bite. See, that's 2 indications I had then. That was a real quick bite. You've got to be like concentrating on your float. It's really quite tricky conditions, to be honest. Same elastic, same main line. It's all quite light fishing really. 011 main line because I get the better float presentation in the wind. Obviously if it was a bit warmer, you know, the fishing was better, I'd probably be fishing with like 013 main line, 011 bottoms and a 16 SFL. But when you're trying to catch, when you don't know how the fishing's going to be, and it can be quite hard, to me, going down to a small hook like an 18, single maggot, you know, maggot and pinky, I can even put a double maggot on there, it doesn't matter. I'd just rather sit there with an 18 on, a nice little 18 with a single maggot, because at the end of the day that's what you're feeding, you know. And some days I think single maggot can make a huge difference. It's definitely not you know, it's definitely not one of them days where you just drop it in and catch one, not yet anyway, but hopefully as we go along. See, that was a tiny, it's just going to feed a few more maggots. Just, I don't know whether that was a tiny fish. It's going to feed like another 10 maggots. Not throwing them, I'm throwing them when I'm not fishing it. And just cupping it while I'm in there. But obviously I can do a bit of both later on, but I just don't want to, I'm just trying to catch the odd fish really, at the moment. I'd like to be bagging up obviously, but that ain't happening, not yet. Fingers crossed it will do. And that is lovely. It's just backing up. Makes a massive difference to your presentation when it backs up against the wind. And like I said, that long line, it just seems to be going the opposite way. And straight away I'll come back, put another inch and a bit of line on the deck. It's just going to help with the presentation. There we go. Little silverfish though. So just putting those 10 maggots. Not an F1 I don't think. A bit perchy, but I don't mind that. At least you know that your bait's being at. That's the nice thing about getting an odd silver. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put that down a minute, and I just want to have a quick look at that 30-metre line. That's the line at the moment. I've actually caught 2 of my F1s on. Just going to put a single maggot on. Tap a few maggots in. I don't sort of mess around. I don't tap. I'm not the sort of angler who's going to tap like 3 maggots in. I really struggle to do that sort of fishing. I have to feed, when I'm fishing with maggots, I have to feed some. I really struggle to feed 6 maggots. Just take that section off. So that's my new 13-metre line, which I fed just before I come off of it with just sort of 15 maggots. It's not easy with that wind. It's a full-on side wind I've got here. The thing is with this peg, it's actually quite wide. It's probably 16 metres wide, 15 to 16 metres wide. So you've got a lot of water to cover. If you're not careful, it can be really confusing. Not sure if that was an indication or not then. And to go out of your peg, when you're in a wide peg, it's more difficult. It feels like you're not going away from yourself much. When it's a narrow peg and you can sort of fish 13 or 14.5 metres down the peg, it feels like you're getting a long way away from yourself. Oh, there we go. Little bite, little perch. Not exactly what I wanted, but at least I've had a bite there. Just going to throw now a few maggots on that short line. Just give that another go out there. I'm going to put a Manu on. Red and white maggot. Just tapping a few more. And that could have quite easily gone under then with a big F1 on, you know, and then you're away. But I've also had it where you get a few perch and you get a nice run of F1. So don't just sack it off because I've caught a perch there. Things can change very quickly on a venue like Tunnel Barn. And when you're fishing a winter league like I do, you know, you don't draw the greatest of areas. I mean, the only option I've got, another option I've got is ground bait. I've had one big skimmer, and on one of these lines, if it doesn't get going, I'll probably put a nice little ball of ground bait in, because one, it can drag the F1s in your peg, and two, it can also drag a lot of big skimmers in your peg. And when you're in a tough area, no, not just at Tunnel Barn, but a lot of areas, or a lot of lakes, it can make a huge difference to your result. There we go. Another perch, I think. So I don't think there'll be a lot of F1s there for certain at the moment. But like I said, you know your bait's being net, so it gives you the confidence of carrying on feeding. I'm just going to go back to my original 13 metre line now. This is what I would, this is what we bring the cameras for. This is what goes through my mind. Hard days, winter fishing, it can be tough. I could have quite easily gone in on a different day on that pellet line short, had a great run of stockies. Unfortunately, they're either not feeding or they're not here. But that's why we bring the cameras out, because this is what happens in a match. This is exactly what happens to me. So this is the line that I went on after fishing short with pellets. Look at that. How do you work that out? If you want proof of what F1 fishing's like in the winter, a place like Tunnel, that's exactly what it is. I think that's only a little stocky in mine, but I don't care. It's an F1, I think. Yeah, a little stocky. And always now and again, just stick just a few micros in. Really negative fishing. Like, might put like 4 or 5 micros in. with me maggots, and I just think to myself, that just leaves a little bit of smell on the bottom, you know, maybe something to sit over. Because what I find really like frustrating in a way is these sort of venues, which I found out a long time ago by mistakes really, that actually, let's just put a few micros in with them, was actually priming the line up didn't always work, which is really strange. A lot of my fishing is priming the line up, leaving it, going on it. And to do that on this sort of venue sometimes just doesn't work. You just literally got to start a new line. You can prime it, but the priming time has to be really short. See that again, see if I can get another one. So that was great for the camera then to see that. Look at that. It's another silverfish, but straight in, double maggot. The biggest, oh, it's not a bad fish actually. Nice little skimmer. But that's nice because it's like I'm feeding a bit of bait, getting some bites. And bearing in mind, some of the winter matches I've fished here recently, £30 has been a really good weight. So that was on a Man United. Nice little 8-10 ounce skimmer. I was actually telling Zolt a while ago, I drew on the opposite side of this lake, and I didn't draw very well. It's quite a tough area of the lake. And I caught like 30 odd pound, just over £30. And that was like 5th or 6th on the lake out of 17 anglers in a winter league. And that skimmer there, I caught quite a few of them. Great day's fishing, tough. Yeah, okay, you're never in the race of like actually winning, but when you're fishing a winter league with a team, that made all the difference. So I'm just going to throw a few. Now I've committed to that short line, I am going to start throwing maggots there, even though it's quite early in the session. We've only been going for probably about an hour and 10, hour and 15. And the thing is now, I've gone to my right slightly on that other 30 metre line. I've got the option of actually going. There we go. Isn't that amazing? Even someone like Zolt, it's really interesting. I take Zolt, obviously go out fishing with Zolt a lot, filming. And even Zolt says to me, Des, I can't get my head round it. And for him to actually sort of sit here and watch, and you guys to watch, is really sort of, you know, I don't make out I'm the most fantastic F1 angler in the world. But there is there is ways of catching. Another little stocky. Now you think, well, why weren't they on those micros straight away? I don't know. Perhaps if I'd have stuck it out, but I was never going to stick it out like that. Sort of just sit there on pellets. There is an option, obviously, in matches that I've done before. I'm sort of next to someone, or someone is catching well. So just going to put a few micros in there. A few more maggots, not many, only probably about 8 or 10 maggots. And I've seen them catching on pellets, and I'm sort of catching it on maggots because of what happened at the start. I didn't catch on pellets, but then you can always start another lineup. You can just put a plummet on, get one of your rigs, and put a pellet line in again and start. And I have done that in a couple of matches. You know, I've been sort of had a good run on them. It's just like some of the times the fish aren't in your peg. Oh, so that was all. Every fish I've had there since I've been filming has been on a red and white maggot. 18 SFL, like I said. 4B12 F1 maggot. I mean, they sit amazingly well, even in these conditions. Like I said, a little bit more low on the bottom than normal. Probably, I got 2 inches of body stuck out if I put a plummet on that float, just because it is trying to sort of inch through with the wind, which is always a bit of a pain. Especially when it gets windy like that. As for fishing tight over today, that's going to be a really struggle. I have actually got a line at 14.5 metres in slightly shallower water, but it's going to be really, really hard to fish, especially with the tow going the same way as the wind. And if it was really, really tough, like literally I was struggling to get a bite anywhere, sometimes I'll pick a catapult up and start catapulting over one of my longer lines. But at the moment, with the wind as well, that's going to be a right struggle. Ooh. I mean, this is when a real stiff pole like I'm using comes into its own. Massive, you know, it makes a huge difference to your fishing. Holding that out there at 13 metres in a real nasty wind. Just come back short. I had a nice little spell at 13 metres. But it's just gone off. So what I've done on my 30 metre line, that I've not my original 30 metre line, but the sort of to the right 30 metre line, I've just put a small mat of pellets in with just a couple of maggots. I've not topped up my other 30 metre lines. I had a nice little spell on that, just with double maggot, red and white maggot. I just thought, right, I'll just have a go short. And I've just had an F1. So we're talking about halfway through the session now, and it's going all right. I've actually, that 30 metre line that I originally started on, yeah, it was really slow, but I did catch two quite early. Then I've sort of come short, went on the other 30 metre line that I plumbed up. Not a lot there at all, apart from a few silvers. But I thought I'd just come short, just to see. You never know. I've caught short on these venues, you know, halfway through the match. Ooh, that looked like a little dink then. And I've also caught on it, you know, right at the end of the match. So you've got to try it. I've just sneaked one in, probably about 1.5 pounds, which is nice. So just throwing maggots there while I've been fishing the other lines. Looks spot on, to be honest. Looks like, you know, if they turn up there, you could probably, you know, have a really good run of fish. And what I like to do is, once I start catching on that line, the line I've got to my right, I know it's quite confusing, but I've also set up another line to my right. I'll end up feeding that, because if I come late, that was a good bite. That might have been a liner. What happens if, when they come short, if they come short, if it goes a bit funny, having another line short, away out of the way a bit at the same depth, you can have a couple there. Instead of going back long again, you can have a couple of lines short. It's like fishing a long line. But obviously when they come short at the end, you don't really want to be messing around. You just want to be fishing short. And sometimes having two short lines, but away off a little bit, the same depth, if you can do it with the same rig. But I don't normally start feeding that until I start catching short, if I catch short at all. As you can keep just like both lines ticking over. See, that's another little bite then. I'm not sure whether that's silvers or not. Let's just chuck a few maggots in. So not chucking loads in, but enough, not overdoing it. I've probably caught like 15 F1s up to now, a couple of big skimmers, a couple of perch, even had a couple of gudgeon. But obviously most of them fish have come from my 13-metre line. Everything on maggots. I've not gone back to pellets. Okay, another little baby silver that. So not good news that at the moment. Another gudgeon that. I've had a couple of them. So I'm going to sack that off. Just go back out at 13. Definitely felt at that 13-metre line though. Just feeding a few more micros with me maggots has helped. Definitely not coming in just yet. And sometimes they don't. But you've got to keep your eye on your watch. Try and get your timing as good as you can. Because that short line can be key for a lot of your F1 fishing during the winter months. So I'm just going to go on my main sort of 13-metre line, if you like. The one I started on, which has been the best line up to now. But I did also put a few micros on that 13-metre line to me right before I come off of it. I did have a couple of perch on it. I think I caught one skimmer. Definitely a bite that. Just seeing that little tiny indication. So that's definitely the line at the moment. Any stockies though. I've had some nice ones as well. But it's nice that there's a few stockies around. A bit bigger than a stocky, that one. Bit bigger one. One of the old stockies, that I think. Pounder. Nice fish though. Crafty as you like. Nice fishing. Love this sort of fishing. You know, when it's just not like, it's quite difficult and you're making your odd bite. It's good practice for me as well, because this has been my fishing on this venue when you're not drawing particularly great. So just about sort of dozen maggots and just a sprinkle of 2 mils. So that indication as well, just before that, probably a little liner or something, or maybe I missed it. Oh, that wind's dropping just a little bit now. Look at that, straight under. I'm not sure what that is, but that is the line at the moment. But these fish can come in all of a sudden on that short line, or hopefully. I'm not bothered anyway, because it is winter fishing. Sometimes it don't happen like that. A little sort of Goldie F1 that. It's like the ones you get down Whiteacres, the smaller version. Little blondie. Nice fish. So sticking on that double maggot. It's hard to sort of judge at the moment how many maggots I've put in. I'm probably putting like 12 in, 15. Just with a couple of micros. Actually, sort of just on that On that cast, I literally just let everything settle, just hold the float out of the water, like a bit like pellet fishing then, and let it go straight down in that last sort of 6 inches. And that virtually went straight down. Look at that. Oh, that worked nicely. Yeah, a tiny little fish though. Come off, whatever it was. I think it was a tiny little F1 that. Not too sure. It's just like they're coming, it's like I said earlier, it's like they're watching the bait. When there's a few there, they're watching the bait go down. I'm not going to feed this time because that was like instant. I'm just going to put a few micros in while I'm on my way out, just to feed that other. Just put a little cab pot full of micros in on my to the right. That's what I would think. That's what I'm, that's what these films are all about. That's what I'm thinking. I've got a little opportunity there of. Let me try that again. Just let everything straighten up and straight down. Oh, it's nice now. I can see the float nice at the moment. Oh yeah, they're there now. Lovely. Any little ones though, but I'm not bothered about that at all. I think now, if you wanted to, you could probably put a pellet line in. That's the thing about that line over to the right, at that distance. Just putting a few micros in. If I wanted to, but I feel like I would need another rig. That's where it gets a little bit confusing sometimes. That you want a little bolt rig, and obviously you can set up an awful lot of rigs doing this fishing. And I try not to confuse it if I can help it. I'd rather just concentrate on the lines I'm fishing rather than sort of setting up so many rigs. Let's just do that again. So that was just holding it out, letting it all go down, letting it all straighten up and down. A lovely bite that. He's going a bit. Nice fishing now. Said a couple of hours to start getting bites, which you'd expect that unless you're on like a little nestful. Putting a lovely weight together, eh? And I'm not going to really change much, really. I'm going to keep that sort of inside line ticking over with maggots now. I've made my decision on that. Concentrate on those 30-metre lines. Well, that main one anyway. And I've just got the option, if this just dry up, to go on to the other 30-metre line where I've just fed a few pellets. Sort of willy-nilly, really. I'm not sort of like stopping fishing. It's just on my way out. I can just stick a few micros in there and think, well, at least I'm sort of, there's some up there. There's a bit of smell in the water. They're proper there now. I'm not sure what that is. That might be a tiny little stocky. Good fishing now, though. Whee, little baby stocky. Look. Oh, it was. He come off. Typical stocky. They're the ones that come off and smash your rig up. Bit like what's happened here. I'll try and save it if I can, because that rig's working absolutely perfectly. Oh no. Come on. Please come out. It does happen to me as well, ladies and gentlemen. It's not just you. This is what normally happens is when I start catching is when I get a tangle as well. We're going to be all right. Yes. Thank you very much. Right, let's get back out there. So I'm just going to concentrate on this at the minute, just tapping in like a dozen maggots. Now and again, a couple of micros with it. And then hopefully this short line will eventually get going. I say, you never know. It's never guaranteed. We've got a little bit more time to go yet. So I'll report back to you in a minute. But definitely out there, tapping those maggots in. I caught a few earlier by sort of flicking it to one side. But the last few, it's been better to get everything, sort of lower your maggots right into your feed. Back short again. Oh, hello. So I had 5 or 6 on that 13 metre line, and I did actually go on my second 13 metre line, as I spoke about during the film. I did actually catch 2 there over those few micros, but I thought before then it went dead, so I thought I'd just have another go short, and I've just come short and caught 3 in 3 trucks. And it's amazing. That's one of them ghosty, not ghosty, one of them blonde F ones again. Nice fish, eh? And this is amazing. I mean, from the last time I spoke to you, I probably like 20 minutes of fishing. But I went in short, I caught one, and I caught a gudgeon. Had a couple of indications. I thought, right, I'll leave it. Gone in there and just had 3 in 3 chucks. So I'm just tapping some maggots in. Well, I'm going to just sort of come on it. So what I've decided to do is just pot in like 15 maggots. Just spread them out a little bit. 4B14 F1 maggot. I said 18 SFL. We've already spoke about that. Double maggot. And that is literally 3 in 3 chucks. Just hope that they've rocked up now. Oh, exactly. This is what F1 fishing's all about. It's like I'm not sure whether they've been out there and they've come in, or whether they've been there and they're not feeding. Just for a few maggots. But let's talk about what's happened. You know, started off on pellets thinking they were going to be straight on them. Not interested. Didn't give it too long. I'd never have done on this venue. I've always found, maybe on different venues it's different. The ghosty F1. But on this venue I've always felt like if I was going to catch on pellets, I think it's just a confidence thing as well. I'm going to catch quickly. I'll give it, you know, I fed 2 lines with pellets. It didn't happen. Changed the maggots. That didn't really, I don't think there was anything short at the start. I don't think it no matter what I would have fed, to be honest. And then I went long with pellets, nothing. Just changed the maggots over them pellets, and straight away I caught 2 F1s. And as soon as that happened, I changed my short line to maggots. And then luckily for me today, my little sweet spot has been 13 metres bang in front of me. But when I caught it 13 metres, I also plumbed up again to me right, thinking, you know, if I needed to, I could go between the 2 13 metre lines. But the other 13 metre line has been, well, I've not really spent a lot of time on it. Look at that. Not spent a lot of time on it. And I did catch 2 before I've just come short. But with the timing now, we ain't got long to go, really. I needed to try and catch short. The wind's dropped. I can see me float absolutely bang on at the minute. And that's the 4th F1. very, very quickly, within 10 minutes. Oh, saying that, the wind's dropped, it's just got back up again now. The wind's made it really awkward today, but the fishing's been mega. Considering we've had so much rain, the water's like ice. There we go. It's brilliant. When they rock up like that, there is nothing better. A few maggots. Better fish that. Oh, hello. Come on. That 9 jaw is absolutely bang on for these fish. Nice big Tunnel F1, double maggot. This is when I don't want to go home. It's been brilliant, but when you catch on this, it ain't nothing better. And some days you go home. I've had plenty of days, believe you me, not just on this venue, but other F1 venues. And you think, oh, if only they would have come short a little bit sooner. But that's fishing, that's why you come back and do it again the next week. And when you know, like me, I don't do this week in, week out. And it's so nice to actually come and do this. So this cast, I'm just going to tap a few maggots in like that. Drop that down. And then really concentrate. Them F1 maggots for this don't get better. I know I set up an F1 fine for pellets. And that little bit of wind with it trying to push back a little bit. It's not actually moving to the right, but it's just holding it. It's just perfect presentation. And when I'm talking about some of the bites I'm striking at, they are small bites. I don't mess around. But this is where you've got to be a little bit careful about throwing too many maggots. If they come off the bottom, they can be an absolute pain. But sometimes the only way to try, you know, to keep them coming when they do come short is to keep throwing. That's something you've got to work out now. That's why I'm sort of throwing a few as I hook one and then cupping in afterwards. But I'll see. Another one now. It's amazing how it changes. Just for a few maggots. See, that one's hooked under the chin. If I show you that, oh, he's actually come out in the net. He's just hooked under the chin, that one. I'll try and get one more for you. But how many times this happened to me over the years? A lot of times when it's actually got me. Yeah, I've won matches, I've done well for the team. And a lot of it is about catching short at the end. Even if you're in a really tough area, you might only catch 4 or 5. You know, the other week I caught 20 fish in 45 minutes. Which is mega fishing, really, for the winter. So just hold it. Look at that. So I've got to go careful now. Feels like now, throwing. Just go a bit careful. I think I'll get this one in and I won't throw this cast. And that's what goes through my mind. Because that is quick fishing. Nice F1 that. Oh, that's a funny, that's like an F, what they call like an F2 that, I think. Look at him. It's like an F1 with like carp scales. What a beautiful fish. So this cast, I'm just going to go out. 2 fresh maggots. Fill me little pot up. Now this is when you can get into like filling me little cab pot up. That's why I use those little cab pots. I think they just hold the perfect amount of maggots for winter fishing. probably like 20 maggots. And it's starting to rain again, believe it or not. And the sun's out and it's raining. Anyway, we'll try and get one more because I don't really want to get soaking wet again. Look at that. The lovely English weather. I probably, you know, if I'd have been in a match situation today, I would have now I started catching short and I had a little bit of time left, I'd have probably just started throwing over to my other line short to the right. Because if this happened, you can sometimes go on that line, like I did my 13-metre line, catch a few and then come back to your main line and have a nice run again. There we go. Oh, that might have been fouled up, that. In fact, I would say that was 100% foul hooked. Yeah, I got a little tiny scale there, look. Get some of that, you know what I mean? The crafty, they're in your peg off the bottom. A few maggots again in my pot. I'll try and get one more before we finish up. A little bit shorter line than what I've been fishing longer because I can hold it obviously a lot easier there. Probably fishing about just over a foot. Oh, that was right in the feed, that. Probably a liner again. There you go, tiny bite. Awesome. This is what I live for, this sort of fishing. Unfortunately, looking at what's coming over the back here, and me and Zolt, you don't want to get that wet, do you? We're going to call it a day. But what a fantastic day I've had here at Tunnel. It's been very similar to my fishing here at Tunnel this winter. And I hope you've picked up some nice little tips on how to approach a venue such as Tunnel. Pellets have been no good. Maybe later on if I'd have stuck with them, but I think I would have stuck with them for too long and I'd have missed out on lots of fish. Anyway, I bet you've picked up some nice tips like I said. It's been absolutely mega. Thanks to Mike and Sarah letting us fish on this great venue. I absolutely love it and I urge anybody to come and fish Tunnel during the winter because it is absolutely unbelievable fishing. But what a great fish to finish off. Ghosty F1. Built like a little tank, him. But I hope you've enjoyed the film. Picked up some great tips. Don't forget to subscribe and like the YouTube channel. And thanks for watching. Let's get him back.